Excuse me. Has anybody seen White Rabbit?
That was a joke about the world being flat, right? Was it?
Why does it seem like the further we go back in history, the more advanced we were? You're telling me people were so primitive they took a hammer and chisel and made this?
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
When we are successful, we will be. We have a real chance at this new world order.
Buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
Welcome, fellow truthers and conspiracy junkies, to another episode of White Rabbit. I am your host, Catalyst Jones. We're going to be diving into some crazy ass shit because, as you all know, that UFC fighter King Bo yesterday just went viral for calling out. He called out Jimmy Kimmel and all of Hollywood and mainstream media and basically said, eat a dick, you guys are all pedophiles. And what better person to have on than Sean from the Conman podcast, who did a 4-part series on Epstein. So let's get into some Epstein shit today. And I would like to welcome Sean from the Conman podcast. What is going on, brother?
What's going on? I'm glad to be here. I just did Master Debaters yesterday. I'm doing the rounds. It's fun.
Yeah, dude, those guys are great, man. The Great Deception podcast and Matt, and then you were probably on, was Ryan Dean on there as well?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great fucking guys. So what's up with Conman podcast? For any of my listeners that don't know who you are and what your podcast is about, why don't you spit a little knowledge for them?
Yeah, so it's basically me and 3 of my other friends. We kind of go over conspiracies. It's like a round table conversation, but it's a comedy podcast, but we get into some really dark shit. So like, for example, what we're going to talk about today, we got Epstein, and we talk about a lot about pedophile cults, and we talk a lot about Satanism, all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
And
I remember you guys were joking that you might change the name to Pedocast or something like that. Right?
All roads lead to pedophilia in the conspiracy world. That's just how it is.
It's so fucking crazy, and you're right. It does, and a lot of this dark shit will fucking wear you down. And so it's really cool that you guys are doing your show and sprinkling on your dark humor on top of it. Because if you can't laugh about this shit, you know, it'll take you to a dark place.
Oh yeah. We did an episode on the Franklin scandal, and we were talking about the private jets, how they're flying all these kids from Boys Town, and they take them to these sex parties. And we had this joke where they're like, was there like a ball pit in those jets? And then we started talking about like ball gags. Was a ball pit full of ball gags? And we kept going and getting darker and darker. And I ended up putting that clip on YouTube. And man, so it ruffled feathers. It's our only negative. That's the only time I've ever got anything negative about the show. They're just like, how could you say that about these kids? They were molested. I was like, yeah, I'm not defending it. Listen to the whole episode, and we talk about what it is. And some of the people that don't watch or listen to the show were the ones that are angry, because people love that episode. Just these random people on YouTube hated that clip. And I was like, should I take it down? I was like, nah, fuck that. Fuck them.
No, keep it up, man. Wear that shit as a badge of honor. I figure if you can't ruffle enough feathers, then you're not doing something right.
Yeah, and we're having fun. We're making fun of like Paul Benassi and all those guys. Paul Benassi's a real piece of shit. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a guy that allegedly kidnapped Johnny Gosch. He was one of the other kids that was part of the Franklin scandal. He was like the teenager that would bring in other kids. And on the Franklin scandal, they were told to take this kid they found. I think it was Arizona, and they were forced to like rape this kid. And then they ended up, like, after they raped the kid, because they had the guns pointed in the back of their head. After that, they were finished with them. They ended up shooting the kid in the back of the head. So, I mean, Paul Benassi has seen some fucked up shit, but also he's kind of a pedophile too. So I don't like pedophiles they should all be executed, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100% agreed. There's only one cure for that shit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I didn't know that. So he was basically like the Ghislaine Maxwell of the whole scandal, huh?
And no, it's kind of like you know what, that's not a bad comparison, because the Ghislaine one, it's a little, I think she just had way more power than a guy like Paul Benassi. Paul Benassi would be like more like a soldier that they had, and Ghislaine was like somebody that kind of that's the way that like how she went and met, like through her dad, because if you know anything about Robert Maxwell, when he was murdered, or they drowned him, they said he committed suicide. He had all this paperwork, and he was like daddy's girl. Like his boat was called the Lady Ghislaine.
Right.
So he told her to shred all the paperwork and then to go to New York and meet up with a guy named Jeffrey Epstein. And then this is how the whole connection, they ended up dating, and like they formed this whole thing with dealing with the CIA and flying, having these parties and his island. No one knows why he has so much money, like in his hedge fund. So basically, when I did this episode on Epstein, it's basically the whole operation of it, because the 4 parts isn't just Epstein, because the story, the name of it's kind of misleading, because you're talking about how this whole started off, because it's a fucking huge just operation.
Yeah, I was hoping we can get into a little bit of how it started off. And I'm glad you did bring up Robert Maxwell before I had to, because I always kind of felt, and I know that there's a lot of other truthers that feel the same way, that maybe Epstein wasn't the power. Maybe it was just Ghislaine Maxwell that was the person behind the power in this whole situation. How do you feel about that? And I'm only asking you that because I did not get to your 4th episode yet.
Oh yeah. So the way I kind of ended that was, I said Jeffrey Epstein is a middle management guy. He's not as big of a deal as what people are trying to put out. Like if you go on Netflix, Hulu, and like they have all these documentaries about Jeffrey Epstein and how he's just like this. They try to pin everything on him, but they don't talk about the whole operation. They don't talk about how deep the FBI, like people like J. Edgar Hoover, how deep they're into it, how the mob was into it, like the Jewish mob, the Italian mob, the big mob families, they're all into it. Roy Cohn, they connected that, like he's connected to Donald Trump, and he's also there's connections to the Clintons, and even the Iran Contra affair. It's so big. It's the Mossad, and like just you name it, it's all there. It's fucking wild. So Jeffrey Epstein's a middle management guy. It's not just him. No one ever talks about who's. I mean, everyone talks about it now because it's like mainstream, but like who's the names on the list? And no one's going to jail except for Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, for basically sex trafficking. Yet who is she selling these kids to? That list is not going to come out. I doubt we'll ever find out.
If you were to prosecute all the people that were involved, it would literally take down the American government.
Well, I think that we should anyway.
No, I'd be in favor of that.
I think we need to dismantle the whole fucking thing and start over with something that works a little bit better.
Start over.
And it's not Marxism and it's not fucking socialism. I'll tell you that right now.
No,
but
I mean,
you probably just ruffled some feathers when you brought up Donald Trump. And I know that there's a lot of people listening to my show that will defend this, and they will say, Donald Trump is the only one that actually agreed to work with when he got subpoenaed. He's the only one that agreed to testify against Jeffrey Epstein. So what are his ties with Epstein? Actually, I don't want to start there. How did this shit get started? And then listeners, we will get into Trump. I promise you.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll talk about Trump. He has a bunch of pedophile friends, but other than that, it's weird. Do you have a lot of pedophile friends? Because
no, I can't say that I have. And if I do, they keep it under wraps really fucking well.
Yeah. So this whole thing started off with the Brofman family. This goes back into where this all started off with prohibition. So it goes way back. There was a guy named Sam Brofman, and he had this business where he would bootleg liquor, obviously, and he had all these connections with the mob families over there, and he would sell it to them. And he had kind of like a protege, this guy Rosensteel. Rosensteel was like a middle management type of guy, and he started working with these guys. He was kind of like a loose cannon, but this guy, well, let me bring the notes up so I don't get these names wrong. So yeah, so Rosensteel, he was the guy that he was the guy that kind of ties everything together, and he built this empire. And he had a lot of powerful friends. He even had connections to J. Edgar Hoover, and they would have these kind of blackmail parties. And I know you've probably heard of some of these blackmail parties with Epstein and I mean the Franklin scandal and all that, where they'd have these big politicians come to these parties in these hotels, and Rosensteel would bug the rooms, so he would hear what they would talk about, and he would use it as blackmail. And he would even have these parties that had boy prostitutes. His ex-wife came out and said it. She was like, "Yeah, I was there. There was little boy. There's boys as young as 7 years old. Like it's crazy."
That's fucking horrible. And Hoover, he had some demons himself too. He was like a cross dresser behind closed doors, right? Or at these parties. I wouldn't say behind closed doors to the normal public, I would say. But everybody that was a who's who knew that he was like just a fucking freak, right?
Yeah, and I think it was Rosensteel that was the one that, or no, I think it was Meyer Lansky who knew about it, and they were able to take pictures of him, and they had it, and this is the reason why the mob got away with so much stuff back then, because he was compromised, and I'm not trying to defend him, he was a fucking monster, but they had him in his pocket. He couldn't do shit. Like like all the stuff they could have took down the mob years ago, but they won't, because our government's ran by the mob now. Not enough people talk about that. Our government is ran by the mob. Everyone's like, oh, it's ran by the Jews. Kind of. The Jewish mafia.
Right. Well, there's so many hands in everything. And Kennedy's father was heavily embedded into the mafia with all the ties that he had, and some would say that Kennedy only won because of his ties with the mafia.
Prescott Bush, same thing.
Right. And so let's backtrack a little bit here. So during the Prohibition is basically when this whole Epstein empire started, and this is probably before Epstein was old enough for his own consent, right?
Yeah.
Or so was he even alive back then?
Sorry. I was. Can you repeat that?
I said, was Epstein even alive when all this shit started?
No, he was not. He doesn't get involved until much later, because this is like around 1920s. Like, he doesn't get involved until like the 1970s. So I don't know. Do you know how they found him?
No, I don't.
So Jeffrey Epstein was a college dropout, but he was hired to go work in this really prestigious like middle school called Dalton University. Oh, not Dalton, just Dalton School. It was like an elementary / middle school.
Right.
And
it was like a school for the rich people.
Yeah, it was in Manhattan. And he was like a math teacher teaching in this really prestigious school. And like, why would they hire a college dropout? But the guy that found him was a guy named Donald Barr. That's Bill Barr. That's his dad. His dad was in the OSS, which is the precursor to the CIA. And this guy basically groomed him, because they knew he was a monster, like he was a pedophile. And they were like, let's use this guy. So they knew what he was capable of. They knew he liked younger women, or not women. He liked little girls, like specifically these middle school girls. So they kind of used him. They're like, all right, we're like he eventually got laid off or fired at the school, and they brought him on to Bear Stearns, which is like it's a financial shoot. Where does Bear Stearns? I'm sorry. We hadn't done this part in a really long time.
You're totally good, brother.
Yeah. Typing with one hand like a retard. Yeah. It's like a global investment bank. Like there's a lot of banks and a lot of money laundering going on with this, and this is where he met a lot of his powerful friends at Bear Stearns. That's where he first met Adnan Khashoggi, who was he was a guns dealer, and he had like he met some of the guys that when they formed like a big this group called Mega Group. Mega Group was highly like influential, and they're like this. They claimed to be this group that was like a philanthropic type of group.
Now, he met all these people through this Montessori school, or is this beforehand?
Oh, this is after. This is when after he got fired from school.
I'm just curious, how did he get this job at the school, being that, like you said, he was a college dropout, so he must have had some sort of ties beforehand, right?
Yeah. So
or did he forge documents to get his foot in the door because he liked to look at these middle-aged girls?
We didn't get too far into like how he actually got the job. So basically, what a lot of this information that I got was from Whitney Webb, who covered this very in depth. But I don't remember them getting too far deep of how he actually got into Dalton School.
Okay.
Let me see.
Some of my questions probably won't have meaning to the bigger picture. I just I'm a fucking truther. So when I hear
wait, it's there it is. I found it. So it was a guy named Alan Greenberg who got him in there, and he did end up getting him into Bear Stearns also, but he was being groomed by Donald Barr. So he had all these really powerful friends. He's the thing about Epstein, and he's real mysterious. So like there's not a lot known about him. He claimed he worked for the CIA. Like I think they had him on record saying he worked for the CIA. And then later on he denied it. He's like, nah, that didn't happen. I didn't say that. And they're just like, like back then no one had the internet. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that shit's crazy. I remember you guys going over that. I think one of your co-hosts had a funny joke where the CIA stood for, and I can't remember what it is, but I was laughing my ass off. So you mentioned Barr. Any relation to Bill Barr?
Yeah, that's his dad.
Oh, imagine that. It goes way back.
Yeah, and see that's like why there's so many connections. And I had to like tell people on our show too. I was like, I know there's a lot of people that like Donald Trump that listen to the show, but there's so many connections. It's fucking it's too much. Either like you have Roy Cohn, that was his mentor, and Roy Cohn was he was kind of the connection to this group, from going from the guys and the Rosensteel kind of blackmail parties and all that to the more the Donald Trumps and the Clintons and all that, because Roy Cohn was an attorney that represented like the Genovese family, Meyer Lansky, all these guys, and he also represented Donald Trump, and Roy Cohn had a lot of connections with the CIA. He was friends with Alan Dulles. He was also friends with William Casey, and William Casey taught him a lot of the stuff too. And this was before William Casey was the CIA director, and like he helped him get jobs. I think it was Alan Dulles that got him the job as the attorney for that really big law firm in New York City that where he met a lot of these people. And Roy Cohn is maybe the biggest name in this whole story when you think about it and how powerful they got.
Well, yeah, because if you can control the CIA, then I don't see how you would ever get prosecuted for anything, right?
Yeah, and it's not just the CIA. He had a lot of friends, like he had a lot of elite friends in New York City. He was good friends with Rupert Murdoch, and this was like back in, I think, in the 70s when he bought the New York Post. And every time someone would write something negative about Roy Cohn, he would get they would squash the story, or they would get another journalist to go after this guy, the guy that wrote the bad the article about him. So like he controlled the media. He literally controlled the media over there, and he had so many powerful friends. He was untouchable.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of people in today's world that control the fucking media and the narrative, right?
Yeah.
So what is, I'm curious, and we're going to get a little off subject here, and this is going to be more towards some of the pushback that you got. What is some of the pushback that you got from some of these Trumpers? Because I'm going to give you a little bit right now as well.
So the main thing is they'll say he never went to the island, which is fair. There isn't any proof that he ever went to the island. He's partied with them, he's hung out with them. That doesn't mean you're a pedophile. So I get that part. My whole thing about it is he was mentored by a guy that is deeply connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Roy Cohn had he would throw his parties. He had his blackmail parties in the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. And this is where they had the infamous parties at Suite 233, where it was known that they had boys in there.
Right.
And they had these parties where they would bring these, where they would give them drugs, just any pedophile, like throughout history, these same pedophile parties. And Donald Trump, after Roy Cohn died of AIDS because he was gay, which a lot of gay people in the 80s, which, I mean, it's not that edgy to say, but like that's just what happened in the 80s. You died of AIDS.
Right. Now we got the monkeypox.
Exactly. But yeah, so Donald Trump ends up buying the Plaza Hotel, like right after he dies. So there's that connection. And then he was also introduced to Roger Stone and Paul Manafort. So like there's a lot. These guys are all connected. Roger Stone was really close to Roy Cohn. So was Paul Manafort, and they all worked under his on his campaign, and they worked in his White House. Well, not Roger Stone.
So I'm going to ask you, as much as the media wants to demonize Trump, if they had anything on him, and all these places are supposedly bugged, filmed, everything, if they had something, don't you think that they would have used it before he even announced that he was going to run in 2015, 2016?
Yeah. See, that's a good point. Here's my thing about Donald Trump. Do I think he's a pedophile? I don't know, but he knows a lot of these people. Maybe sometimes these guys, that just comes with the territory. Like you're one of the elites and you're hanging out with these guys. They're like, you're hanging out with a bunch of monsters, and right. he probably knows it. And I didn't hate Donald Trump as a president. I didn't think he was as bad as they said he was. I have his issues with some of his like foreign policy, but other than that, I didn't hate what he did, and I like how he battles with the media.
Yeah, I love that. I think that if it wasn't for Trump, and everybody hates on Q too, and that's fine. But I feel like without the Trump and Q movement, there would not be so many people awake right now, and there wouldn't be so many people looking into this shit. And so like that's a blessing, whether or not Q was a psyop, and whether or not Donald Trump has the intentions that he claims that he has, regardless, it awakened a fucking beast in the people of the United States. And not just the United States. I mean, the whole fucking world is awake to this shit now. And I don't think that we would be this awake if it wasn't for Donald Trump and Q.
Yeah, it's kind of great because these are like the stuff like I used to talk about like in my like when I was in high school. We would drive around in I used to drive a van, and we would just get in my van and like we just go get like we'll get beer, we get 40s. Like I mean we weren't rich, so we get like cheap shitty beers and whatever, malt liquor, and we would just talk conspiracies. And like now that's like becoming mainstream. It's kind of crazy to see it.
It is crazy to see it. And I almost kind of missed that I was like the crazy person. But
Yeah.
well, I mean, I still feel like I am the crazy person because amongst the majority of people, you know, that I took a Uber the other day, and this guy was totally backing the vaccine, and damn it, I said that word. I can't go on YouTube now. Totally backing like everything that's going on, and I just had to shut the fuck up because it's like, okay, he's a fucking NPC. I'm just gonna be quiet for the rest of the fucking ride.
Yeah.
I forgot where I was going with that. Oh yeah, back to Trump. So and Roger Stone. So I hope I don't get hated on for this one because I am on the Patriot Podcast Network, and the owner of the Patriot Podcast Network is best friends with Roger Stone.
Roger Stone is awesome, by the way. I'm not just saying that because you said that, but the dude's hilarious. He has one of the funniest quotes. Let me find what he said about Roy Cohn being gay. Hold on. Give me a second. Because he talks about him being gay. Dang, it's not that episode. And the reason I'm kind of trying to go through all this, because this is I don't know if we said it before the on the episode or before, but this is like 30 pages of notes.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I think you mentioned that before we were on air.
Let me see.
I want to get Roger Stone on my podcast to talk about the JFK conspiracy because he knows so much about it.
Oh yeah. And we had on when I worked with the drinking bros, they had Sean Stone on there. Not Sean. Oliver Stone's son was on there. Yeah, he was great. Everyone's like, why the hell do we have this guy? And he was talking about some really fun shit.
What is conspiracy? No, not conspiracy social club. What's the roundtable that Sam Tripley does?
Union of the Unwanted.
Roger Stone was on that.
Oh, those guys are great. Okay, I found the quote where he talks about Roy Cohn being gay.
All right, let's hear it.
So he said, he's like, Roy was not gay. He was a man who liked having sex with men. Gays were weak and feminine. He always seemed to have these young blonde boys around. It just wasn't discussed. He was interested in power and success, which is awesome. Which it's like something you could say in the 80s. Like, that's not gay
if I fucking overwhelmingly beast you over, motherfucker. I'm more of a man than you because I took your manhood.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking Roger Stone, man.
Dude, in that whole thing with the Young Turks where he was with Alex Jones and they just broke into their fucking broadcasts.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite videos ever. I think I watch that video like once every like couple months when I'm feeling down. I'm like, Alex Jones, he's just I know some of the people in this community they think he might be controlled opposition, but I don't care. I love that guy. And everyone, he's been on Drinking Bros a couple of times, and all the people that I used to work with, they're like, that guy's fucking awesome. He's so nice. He likes to party, and he's just a gracious dude, and he's just full of energy and knowledge. I have an Alex Jones like one of those Catholic candles. I don't know where I put it. I have it somewhere in my house.
That's fucking great. You do?
Yeah, I have it on my Instagram, but
I love Alex Jones, and his batting average is fucking amazing. However, to go along with he could be controlled opposition, I will say, like, who breaks into Bohemian Grove, films the cremation of care, and lives to fucking tell about it?
That's what I'm saying. Like I think that if they want that stuff to get out just to show people, they're like, I want people to, if you're that powerful, wouldn't you want people to think you're mysterious and you're capable of shit that you can't even imagine.
Yes,
Like if I'm that powerful, that I'm like we if I'm trying to control people, that's what I'm doing.
it makes sense, but they really do fucking have these rituals, and the higher ups really do have sacred knowledge that the rest of us don't. But I mean, let's ask Alex Jones, man. Like, are you controlled opposition?
I mean, how do you even respond to something like that?
All right, well, I guess we'll never find out.
I love your studio, man. You even have the soundboard. That's awesome.
Thank you, brother. So let's jump back a little bit here. So Epstein got fired from the Montessori school, and he made all these connections while he was in the school. So now he's getting groomed for this position. Where does oh shit, what's his first name? Robert. Where does Robert Maxwell come into play with this?
Well, Robert Maxwell, he was kind of like a double and a triple agent for the Mossad,
Yes.
and he worked deeply with these intelligence agencies. And what really took him down was the Promise software, where he was kind of like a salesman, and they would sell this software, Promise, which gives it's kind of like what it's the original version of what Edward Snowden was talking about with Prism and Pegasus and Carbine and all that kind of stuff. But what this software does is it creates a backdoor into your computer, but they didn't know that they're putting that what they're putting inside their computer. So he was selling this to allies. He was also selling this to enemies, like I mean, what took him down was when he sold it to Los Alamos. Like, he sold it to us, and he ended up that's what when they say he committed suicide, how he drowned. Like, how would he drown when he has a fucking yacht? You know how to swim. That's retarded.
Right. And there was, like, I'm sure he had staff on the yacht as well that would have helped him if he did go overboard. And just the way that they found him was mysterious too, right?
Yeah, well, he was face down, but like when they went to his office, it was completely empty because of Ghislaine Maxwell, how she went and shredded all the paperwork, everything. Like, he did a lot of really secret stuff. He was connected to the CIA, the Mossad, whatever else. I mean, probably the MI6 or whatever the fuck they have, whatever they had back then in Britain.
And he was pretty much a fraud too, from what I understand. Like, he would make himself to be way greater than he really was. He was really full of himself. Like, I know he would go to other countries and expect like this big welcoming and everything. And, you know, he was a media mogul too. He owned a lot of publications, and he was trying to get his hands in the New York publications. I believe didn't he even eventually end up buying one of the papers in New York?
Yeah, well, he bought a kind of, like, I think he bought more than one, and it wasn't in, I don't think it was in New York. I think he had one. Let me look this up, because he's really interesting because he went by like different names.
Yes.
Also, so like he's also another really mysterious guy. So I'm trying to look, what do he have as a name? Yeah, so yeah, trying to find, what was his other name? Oh, so his Robert Maxwell, the name he was born with was Jan Ludwig Hott, and he was like he was influenced by Czechoslovakia's government decision to arm the Zionist paramilitaries in 1948, and a lot of he was also involved with a lot of stuff involved with Israel's creation as a state. Like, the dude, I mean, he's embedded in the history of Israel. So he was a really fucking big deal, unless this information, maybe he made this up. Like, who knows? He's a mysterious guy, as what we're saying.
Yeah, it is true. And from what I understand, he would like throw these overwhelmingly lavish parties. His office like had pillars in it and everything, and it was basically a movie set, because if you walked up, somebody was that worked for him. I was listening to an interview with her, and she said that if you like walked up, it was all fucking like shitty ass shit. So like you knock on these pillars, it's not marble, it's like fucking plastic or ceramic, like just everything about him was a facade. And he portrayed this like bigger, larger than life thing. And it actually worked because it gave him the power. Fake it until you make it, I guess.
Yeah, and he liked to party. He used to have he'd bring prostitutes over, and he also what these guys all have in common is they love blackmail parties. But they liked whores and they like to blackmail each other. They all were the worst type of people to hang out with, but they like to party, and this is what he was. And he was deeply connected with all the big governments that we think control the world, or they do control the world, like the Israeli government, U.S. government, etc.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't mean to get too hung up on Robert Maxwell, but I think that his story and what his part was is way overlooked as far as the whole Epstein thing goes. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead.
Yeah, and just to kind of close this up with the Robert Maxwell thing, and it wasn't the Los Alamos thing that was going to take him out. It was him saying he was going to expose this operation. He was going to start telling people, and they're like, "All right, motherfucker, you think you're hot shit?" So they fucking took him out, and like he was working with a guy, a Texas senator. I think it was a state senator, and what was this? His name was John Tower. John Tower and him were going to expose, and and those guys died right after each other. So,
Oh, that makes sense. So, so he basically hands everything over to Ghislaine, which is kind of weird in itself because he had a son, right? So, in usually powerful families, the heir is the son, not the daughter. And there was another daughter too, right? There's 3 kids, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I think it's Christine Maxwell. I don't know for sure. I don't have that in my notes,
I
but
believe you're right. It is Christine, but she does not want any attention like at all.
she's running some big time shit too. A really interesting thing about Ghislaine Maxwell is she's like really into the whole climate change thing. Like there's like videos of her talking about like saving the whales. I got to look this up because I haven't seen it in so long. But
Well,
like
what do you feel about the climate change thing? Because I feel it's another COVID hoax too.
it's the greatest scam since the Federal Reserve. Like it's wild. Like the more you know about it, like I remember I was in college and I was at a community college, and this guy, he's been studying climate since like the 1970s. And he told us, he's like, I don't want to get political on you guys, but this thing's all political, right? Like, it's not real. He's like, I've been studying this since the 1970s. Like, this isn't like there's evidence that we're just coming out of an ice age. That's why it's getting warmer. We've only been recording this stuff since the 1880s. How do we know?
Right.
Like, this is all being made up. And like people that are pushing this stuff aren't people that actually study it.
That's awesome
like,
that you had a professor that would actually tell you the truth, because most of these professors are Marxist and they want to push the fucking agenda and push that and keep going. And to say another thing is, I don't know if you remember, but a while back they were saying that we were losing the coral reef and it was a huge thing. And now they're all quiet about it because the last time they surveyed it, there's more coral reef than there has ever been recorded.
Yeah, it's funny because I've talked about that. Every time I tell somebody that, they're like, where did you read that? Did you make that? I was like, look it up.
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
You could look it up. They just don't. It's not headline news anymore because they can't keep that narrative going because it's easily debunked.
It's so insane. And like people were falling for it, and they put it in the Inflation Reduction Act. And they're like, a lot of like, they're saying the most important thing is to save the climate. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what about people that need to pay their bills? Like, it's like just like talking climate with people. Like, once you get past your 30s and you stop trying to save the world and you just want to save yourself, that's when you're just like, oh, okay. Like, everything starts making sense.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and there was the guy on Project Veritas that was outed. He was saying as soon as the COVID goes away, we're gonna start pushing climate change is gonna be our next big thing. And now we got Greta Thunberg out there fucking saying that lockdowns for climate change is a greater climate change is more of a threat than COVID. So of course we should do lockdowns. Like, are you kidding me? Lockdowns, stay in your house because it's getting warmer. Go fuck yourself. I'm going swimming.
Yeah, I live in Texas, so like we never like, I mean, we locked down at first, but everything went back to normal pretty fast. It wasn't like it because I have relatives in New York, and we went up to New York, and it was polar opposites. It was crazy. Everyone had masks on still, and this was like over this was like in like early 2022. I was like, you guys still wear masks here? What the fuck? It's so crazy that like people are falling for this shit.
Sean,
And
check this shit out. When you text me today and was like, yo, are we still on? I was at the grocery store. And
yeah,
there was a good 30%. I'm here in California. There was a good 30% of the people in the grocery store still wearing masks, which is
Jesus.
why I wear this shirt to the fucking grocery store. It's the COVID Karen shirt for those people that are listening and not watching. And she's got needles sticking all out of her arm and it says wear a mask. Last week, I saw this girl, and I don't mean to, this is going to come off as racist, but I'm sorry. It's always Asian people and Black people that are wearing masks. And I don't know why, but
that's a good one.
And most of them are unhealthily overweight. And there was this unhealthily overweight Black girl, and she was wearing a mask that had the cartridges on it. Like,
the vaccine thing is like, I can't believe, because there's jobs that I've applied to, and I got laid off from, like, I used to do some like utility stuff for like Univision, or maybe I shouldn't say their name, but I don't
fuck them, out them. If they fucking laid you off for this shit, then out their ass.
But I mean, not really late. I was doing contract work with them, and they're like I'd pick up shifts with them on the weekends, and it paid really well. And they're like you, all of a sudden they're just like, you have to have a vaccine to work here. And I was like, I can't get a vaccine, sorry. And they're like, well, do you have an excuse? I was like, yeah, a religious one. They're like, can you prove it? Like, no. And they just stopped calling me.
Oh man, that sucks. They probably had a list, and they were just checking off people that aren't going to follow along.
Yeah, and I'm not religious. I don't care, but like I don't want to put an experimental vaccine in me, and everything we said, I don't know about you, but everything I said turned out to be true. Like I had relatives that wouldn't come near me. I had a relative that went 2 states away because he knew I was going to be in town.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, really close relative.
That is fucking ridiculous. And there's probably a bunch of people in the state that he went to.
Yeah,
and we're all around him that were not vaccinated.
Yeah, and the people that I know that got vaccinated, they've got COVID more than once. I got COVID one time, and I haven't gotten it ever since. And I was around when I was in New York when the Omicron was going around like crazy. I was in a house that 4 people got it.
Yep.
And I had gotten I got it like the Delta version of it, whatever, all this horseshit. Who even knows it? What this is real,
right?
But we got it. Me and my wife got it like 2 months prior to that, and then we went over here, and everyone had it, and then like we didn't catch it at all. Like, and we were in a house that was like not very well, like insulated. So like we didn't get it. So we're like, oh, we got the blood cells. We got
the antibodies.
Antibodies. What the fuck am I talking about?
You got the real vaccine, bro. Do you remember? I don't know if you're old enough, but did you have monkeypox? Did you have chickenpox parties?
Yeah.
Measles parties, right? So once you get the shit, you get immune to it, right? And where did that go? Where did the thinking of that go? Now everybody's just so scared, and they're pumping themselves with something that has not been clinically trialed. They are the trial, actually, and it's just crazy. And last night, man, it broke my heart. I go to NA meetings, and this girl was talking, and she's been saying that her and her husband have been trying for a year now to get pregnant, and she just recently had a miscarriage. And so after the meeting, I walked up to her husband and I said, hey man, I hate to ask you a personal question, but are you and your wife vaccinated? And he said, yeah. And I said, do not get another booster if you want to have kids. And he looked at me weird, and I was like, yo, there's been a spike. 78% of women, or a 78% spike of miscarriages since this shit came out. I was like, that's all I'm going to say to you. And he like gave me a dirty look, and which is fine, because that, people don't like their realities fucking shattered. But
yeah, Well, the thing, what he's thinking of is because there's only one way to respond to that, because you're thinking like I did this thing and I fucking killed my kid, and he doesn't want to believe that.
See, I didn't even look at it that way. You're right, man. Maybe I should just shut the fuck up. It's so hard for me, man, when I see these people in the grocery store, and it's an everyday thing here because I'm in Sacramento, California, and everybody is either an NPC or just so fucking brainwashed that when I see masks, and I see them all the time, every single day, it's everything in me to go up to them and say, have you ever tried to fill up a shopping cart with sand?
That's exactly what it is. It's because they're putting underwear in their face is what they're doing. And
Yeah.
I was like, when I remember like when you had to wear the masks to go into certain place. I just put it on my chin, and they tell me something. I was like, I'm wearing the mask. I don't give a fuck. And I was being a dick, but I don't care. I was over it. And
Yeah, I just did not comply at all. Actually,
but-
I did order a mask. Have you seen the movie Princess Bride?
I have friends that talk about it. I've never seen it. It's like one of those that's weird. That I've
So
never watched.
he would wear a mask where it just went over his eyes, right?
Yeah,
His little holes cut out, and it was just like a bandana, but
yeah.
with eyelids cut out. And that was his mask. And so like I fucking ordered a Princess Bride mask, and I walked into a store with my nose and my face completely just raw dogging fresh air. You know, but just to be a smartass. But yeah, I never complied except within the first 2 weeks because I didn't know what the fuck was going on, you know. And
Same here. And back to what you were saying about the the miscarriages and all that. Like, is it that crazy to think that they're like their whole initiatives about like depopulation? Like, just think about what like the Club of Rome, when the books they wrote about depopulation. Just think about all the stuff that the UN and the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, like all this kind of stuff. It's all depopulation stuff. Bill Gates,
yep.
everyone that are supposedly running the world, they can't stop talking about depopulation. They love talking about it. And like they're like, when people were like, you think they really try to kill everybody? Like, no, they're not going to kill everyone. They're just going to kill a lot of us. And when you're sterilizing people, which this vaccine is doing, that's what's happening. They're sterilizing people, and it's depopulation. And it's fucking sick, and it's twisted, and that's just what it like. When you start looking into this stuff, that's just what they do. That's their thing. They like it.
Yeah. And, you know, Bill Gates always said we need to get rid of what I believe 75% of the population. And Bill Gates also said we need to vaccinate 75% of the population. And Bill Gates also said how they're going to achieve depopulation is through vaccines. So what the fuck, people?
Look what he did in India.
In front of you. Oh, I know, right? And isn't he being charged for crimes against humanity for the things that happened in India with his fucking vaccine?
Well, yeah, he told them it was
experiments and shit.
Yeah, what is he? I think that was the same situation where he told them that they were being vaccinated for HIV. So they got all these kids to take it, which I don't know why you need to give a kid an HIV vaccine. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, here in America, they're pushing vaccines on kids for shit. What is it called? Well, I brain farted too long, so we're gonna move on.
I think in Pakistan they did the same thing, but they were like, oh, we did it to because they told all these kids that they were taking the HIV vaccine. But what they're really doing was they're stealing their DNA so they can find Osama bin Laden. But I don't think they found him that way. They were just stealing their DNA. That's why you don't send your DNA out, because they're making something. I don't know what it is, but they're making something.
Well, and they started that that project where they were getting people to send in their DNA so that they can find out their lineage and shit like that. And this was years and years before they came up with the coronavirus and with the vaccine. And I have a feeling that they were trying to target specific DNA holders.
Mm-hmm. Bill Burr, he talked about that years ago. He was just like, he's like, you're really going to send your fucking DNA over there? They're probably making a robot with your DNA right now. And we laugh. I was like, he was right.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
We got so fucking far away from Epstein, bro.
It's hard not to talk about this stuff.
It is, because it's definitely one of the conspiracy theories that we have to live through day to day. How the fuck did Epstein get an island?
Um, as far as I know, that what people in the know have said is his relationship with Lex Wessner, who basically gave him all the money for no reason. He gave him a mansion. He gave him all types of money. So that's the only way to track money to him. So I don't know. How much money did Les Wexner? Well, Les Wexner owned like unlimited. He owned or owns because he's still alive, as far as I know. He Victoria's Secret. He owns all this stuff, and Lex Wessner is a big cog in this thing too. He was in the mega group. He also he brought in Southern Air Transport. If you know anything about Southern Air Transport, that used to formerly be American Air, which was owned by the CIA, and they used these planes to whenever they would fly this was in the 80s and the during Iran Contra, where they would have those drops where they fly the planes really low in Mena, Arkansas, where Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas that time. So these are all the connections. It's a lot.
And they were dropping cocaine off in the fields and shit like that.
Yeah, and they told Bill Clinton, if you allow this, we're going to make you president. There are people very close to him and that have said this. I that was one of the only things, because I remember reading this and I was like, how do you prove that they're really telling him this? That was my only issue with these articles at Whitney Webb. Even though Whitney Webb is a hero of mine, I think she's the greatest living
investigative journalist.
Yeah, there's no one even close to her right now. She does dangerous work.
So there was a documentary that somebody had sent me years ago, and it was about Bill Clinton and the cocaine ring. And I cannot find it for the life of me anymore, but it's saying like his septum is completely fucking gone and all that shit. And if you look at Bill Clinton,
oh really?
Yeah, and if you look at him, he's damn near the same. I think him and Trump are pretty much the same age. And you look at them side by side, it's just like, holy shit, bro. Like somebody obviously didn't take care of their body.
Yeah, like you would think he would. Maybe the adrenochrome like does something else to you. Like once you hit that 80, what is he, like 80 something now?
Is he? Hey Siri, how old is Bill Clinton?
Vladimir Putin is 69 years old.
Hey Siri, how old is Bill Clinton?
Bill Clinton is 76 years old.
No fucking way.
Yeah, and I think Trump is 72 or 73, and so is Biden.
Yeah, I think Biden's been dead for a long time too.
Agreed. I don't know if you watch my daily conspiracy reels, but I had a really good one.
Those are so good. I don't know how you find the time to do those. Those are so good.
Thank you. It gets overwhelming sometimes. It'll be like 5 o'clock and I'm like, fuck, I didn't put together a conspiracy reel yet.
Yeah. They come out good though. Like I was making those videos for a while and I was like, man, this is taking up too much of my time. Yeah, I was having fun with them, but it's tough.
Yeah, every once in a while I feel like I bit off more than I can chew, but they are fun and a lot of people seem to like them, so I'm going to keep doing them.
Yeah. Yeah, but the whole Clinton connection, it just that's where it starts. It starts with him being governor of Arkansas, allowing them, because the Iran Contra thing, it was funded by these groups, these guys in Nebraska, in the with the Franklin scandal. You got the Epstien one, and this money is being funneled and laundered through these banking systems that they own. Like the IBCC? What's the name of that one? The one that is ran by the CIA.
Sounds right. I'll take your word on it. Yeah,
it's one of your listeners to be like, he's gonna be yelling through whatever. I think it's IBCC. I might, but this was funded by the CIA, but it was started by people in Afghanistan or Pakistan. But these guys were they were instructed by the CIA to start this up, and they're going to use it as a laundering bank, and they did a bunch of really fucking evil shit. They also funded people in the UAE to they would throw them these parties where they had little boys where they would molest there, and it's really fucking sick shit. And they had little boys and little girls as young as 7 years old. It's so
It's
fucked up.
so fucked, dude. And everybody
Yeah.
that's been to Epstein Island said that they never saw him with the little girls, that he preferred the boys.
Really, I didn't know all about that.
Well, it could be hearsay, but like in the community, I used to hear that thrown around quite a bit. And
It's BCCI, not
okay,
IBC. Yeah, BCCI, which was nicknamed Bank of Crooks and Criminals International, but it's actually the CIA linked Bank of Credit and Commerce International. So this is really interesting. We got a little bit into this. Some guy that helped bankroll Bill Clinton's career was one of the majority owners of this later on. And he was one of the investors in this. It was called the Worthen Bank. He was one of the guys that started that, and he donated $3.5 million to Bill Clinton's presidential campaign. And I think you do that through like these different, like kind of like the Clinton Foundation. That's how, because I don't think you can donate that much to a politician. But I don't remember the law for that. It's been a few years since I've looked into that.
right. And then they're fucking masters at using shell companies and shit like that as well.
Yeah, it was. And also his that guy, his name is Stevens. What was his first name? Jackson Stevens. He was represented by a law firm called Rose Law Firm, and this is where Hillary Clinton was a partner at. So another connection. This is the reason why I like this story so much. It's kind of like the conspiracy board where you just have like lines going everywhere. Like they're like this guy and this guy's connected. It's like
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme.
Yeah. It's the Charlie Day thing. This is what this is.
It's fucking awesome. And if we don't get through all of it, it's fine. Don't like rack your head about it, because I love when my show leaves more questions than answers, so that my listeners will go and try to look into the shit for themselves.
Yeah, it's a fun rabbit hole to go down. It's one of my favorite ones. I put in a lot of work to find all this stuff. Not as much as Whitney Webb. It's her life's work, and I'm using a lot of what she said, because I just think that people should just really go and listen to her podcast, go to her I don't know her personally, but I just think her work's so important that people need to know what she's doing, and it's go find it. She's great.
Yeah, agreed. So where do we go from here, brother? I'm gonna let you go ahead and take the wheel, because I obviously don't know as much as you about this subject. So yeah, where do you want to take this?
So basically, the way I ended it was I said it's deeply connected. Jeffrey Epstein is a middle management guy, because there's so many different levels to it. You have the CIA, obviously. There's so many connections to the CIA. You have so many connections to the Mossad. There has been people that have tried to kind of expose this whole thing. Like there was the Danny Castellero. I don't know if you're too familiar with Danny Castellero.
No.
But he was a guy that was trying to expose what he called the octopus. So he called these people the octopus, and he had all this information on them, and he was about to expose them, just like every other story where someone's about to get exposed and then he died.
It's clipped, yeah.
Yeah. So someone that was really close to him was like, he had some information that was about to come out, but he died, and we didn't know. We'll never know what it is. But one of the apparent things that they found in him was this thing that kind of like that numbs your whole body, where you can't like try to escape. So like they killed him, and he wasn't able to, like, there's no struggle when you look at his autopsy. There's no struggle to it. But
So he was paralyzed and then they killed him.
yeah,
That's fucked.
yeah, and the drug they took it from, where that they used was a military grade drug that was taken from like some army base. So like there's a lot of shit to this one.
Yeah, definitely. I don't remember the name coming up in your 4-part series, but I'm curious, does Walt Disney have anything to do with this?
Well, Walt Disney is connected to the CIA. Like most people that have looked into Disney, and like how they're able to get land, and like just because he was, I think one of his relatives was in the CIA, and they were able. Well, this was before. I think this was before the CIA, so it might have been the OSS. It's been a while since we did a Disney episode, like probably like 3 or 4 months ago. So I'm a little fuzzy on that one. But
Oh, awesome. I'll have to go back and listen to that. Yeah, I love getting into the Disney aspect of shit. I actually did an episode on Disney.
oh, I have a connection. Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
But
Oh, go for it.
it just came back to me. So one of the most interesting things we found, or I found, because I read all the episodes, was that there is you're familiar with the Disney Cruise Line,
Yes.
but one of the Disney cruise lines takes you to Little St. James Island, and they advertise it as, they're like, take a dip in the Little St. James Island.
Yes. Yes, I do remember hearing that. That's crazy. And it's called the Virgin Islands, right? Because the owner of Virgin Megastore, Virgin Airplane, or Virgin everything, right? He owns an island out there as well.
I'm sure he does. I'm not familiar with that, but Little Saint, one of the crazier things, like when you start thinking about it, are some of these laws they have, open seas laws. So like there was a time where all these kids were going missing, and when you say the numbers, it was like 300 or something like that within like 10 years, which doesn't sound like a lot, but there's this law over there. If your body is never found, then you can't sue the company. So like what some are insinuating is that like these kids were kidnapped, and they were taken to this island, and they're used, maybe killed, definitely raped.
Yeah, so fucking horrible.
Yeah, so if you ever, if we do an episode about it's called the Disney, I don't remember, I think that we named it the Disney Epstein connection. And
that's awesome. And there's so many people that have been like employees of these cruise ships that have been exonerated and get a slap on the wrist, that actually have been witness to child rape and shit like that, even like on their security cameras and shit, and they try to sweep this shit under the fucking rug. But yet you would think that a company that vests so much into kids, and if they really were there to protect the kids, that they would vet every single person like extreme that we're going to be working on these cruise lines, especially if they have such close contact with these kids and everything. Fucking Family Guy did an episode where Stewie gets kidnapped from Disneyland, you know, and it all ties around. It's a small world after all. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah.
So, you know, like the shit's wide out in the open. I mean, Family Guy even did an episode about Pizzagate where what's the father's name? Fuck.
Oh, Peter,
yeah. Where he's in a restaurant, and they're like, oh, you don't want pizza. He's like, well, what's a pizza? And he's like, and then it's like evil laugh and shit, you know. And I put it in one of my daily conspiracy reels in Pinocchio. They're talking about Pleasure Island, like
yeah,
fucking right there in your face. Like they say it. They never come back as boys.
When you posted that, I remember we might have talked about that on the episode, or it might have been before it. And I was like, you guys ever watch Pinocchio like as an adult? Like they were like, just how they would take all these boys, like that video that you did was so on point, because I remember talking about that, and not enough people talk about that Pinocchio. You're like, oh yeah, it's a fucked up story.
it is a fucked up story. There's so much going on there, and surrounding this whole fucking thing, from Hollywood to politicians to people behind politicians to. Do you think that the Epstein flight logs that we see are the real legit flight logs?
There's got to be. I'm sure there's more because you're not just gonna expose everything. I don't know why you would just put a bunch of fake names like Jimmy Kimmel, Chris Tucker, like all these names. It seems like everyone went there. Like what's going on over there? And I think there's more to this Hollywood elites that are like obviously raping children. Like that's been talked about for a long time. It's a conspiracy, but it's kind of like it's like stuff you don't talk about like when you're there. Like just like Seth Green in the Red Shoe Society. Like there's a lot to these people.
Yeah, definitely. It sucks. The whole Isaac Cappy thing that
Yeah.
was going to expose Seth Green and all those fucking people. And you're right, dude. Every single time somebody gets close. Now, what do you think with this whole Anne Hathaway or Anne Hetch thing going on?
We were talking about that last night in Master Debaters, and that one's kind of crazy. Have you seen the video where someone recorded it from their Ring device, and you could see the car passing in front of their house, and you can hear brakes, like the screeching of brakes, like like when your brakes go out and and it sounds like metal.
Oh, so like somebody cut the brake lines, maybe.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know.
Funny too, because when I put out the daily conspiracy reel with Anne Hetch, I used Tom McDonald's song, and he says they'll cut my brakes and say I was driving and drunk.
that one's so crazy, and like I said this last night on the show was I don't know what to buy because they're like, oh, they killed her because she was making a documentary about child trafficking, and it was going to come out on Lifetime. But I was like, who's watching Lifetime right now? Like, well, I don't think they needed to kill her. I don't think some like fucking old like 60-year-old women that smoke Newports in their house are going to try to go and stop this child trafficking ring. Or maybe they will. Maybe that's the new. These are the people that are on Twitter that have the American flag and QAnon next to it. So like I think these might be our next freedom fighters, our older Midwestern women.
Could be, maybe. Natalie Denise was on Freedom Fridays this last Friday, and she's making a documentary about Chester Bennington and
Chris Cornell.
Yes. But her whole life work is she like literally goes out to these brothels where they're like they have kids and shit. Like it's her life's work. She said on that show that Anne was not making a documentary about it. She was playing a role in a movie that had to do with it.
Oh shit. Yeah, you definitely gotta forward me that. Chris Cornell's probably one of my favorite because I was a big Chris Cornell fan growing up. I love grunge music. Like that was like his. I don't want to sound gay or anything, but man, just music was great. I don't want to go too far into Chris Cornell, but
that's all good. No, there's a lot surrounding that, man. He had a very troubled fucking childhood, and same with Chester Bennington.
See, that's why whenever people were saying that Chris Cornell killed himself, and they're like, oh, he was murdered. I was like, I don't know, man. The guy was pretty suicidal. Have you ever seen his music videos? Have you ever seen like Pretty Noose? Like it's all about committing suicide. But you know what? That's one of the things I never like really looked into the whole, because I've heard a lot of the Bennington and the Cornell and the Clintons, because the Clintons always come up because they're murderous and they're serial killers.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know a lot about that conspiracy because I never like took too much account into it.
Yeah, I didn't really know too much about it either until I started hearing Natalie Denise talk about it. I haven't seen it yet, but she did say that she has part 1 on YouTube of all places. So I'll I'll find that and I'll send it to you because
Yeah.
I'm interested in watching it too. But I guess she's totally changing the format of how she's going to do the rest of it. So she's really taking her time because she doesn't want anything missed. And it originally was supposed to come out like a year ago, but she said the further she keeps diving into it, the more and more information she's finding. So it's going to be like 4 or 5 parts. So
So yeah, that's interesting that she would put it out that way, because that's the best way to do it. Because you'll have like a raw version of it, and I think that's the best way to see those. Because when you think of it, Stanley Kubrick, when he put out Eyes Wide Shut, they edited it because he died before it came out, and there was like
Purposely.
there was stuff in there that he wanted in there that they took out, but he was dead.
yeah.
So they edited it as when he was dead, which is, I mean that's probably procedure, but it's also kind of weird because he was like really big into the occult, and he was also into a lot of the the stuff that we talk about, like we did an episode about the cult of Saturn a few weeks ago. Like our last episode was a cult of Saturn, and just we talked about a lot of Stanley Kubrick stuff, and he believed in all the symbolism. He talked about the the pedophile cults. He talked about satanic cults, all that fun stuff, all the stuff we like to talk about.
Right. Wasn't he thelemic? Like he was a follower of Aleister Crowley, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. That'd be a better question for my co-host, because he's a big movie guy. Adam, from he has a podcast called Skeleton Factory Podcast. He just talks about movies. But yeah, he's I think he was, last time I was talking to him, he was in the middle of reading Aleister Crowley's some of his stuff, which I'm not too familiar with. I know who he is, but I haven't pulled myself to go down that rabbit hole just yet, because I know where it takes me.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there was a time in my life where I started diving down a lot of these rabbit holes, and I wanted to be famous and I wanted all this shit. So I actually bought the Lester Crowley books and was studying this shit, and even consider myself a Satanist. And people do, and that's the point I want to get to, is people fucking change. So is it possible that Stanley changed and he wanted to expose this shit? And is it possible that Donald Trump was rubbing elbows with these fucking pieces of shit and changed and wants to expose all of it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think Donald Trump, he's going to do stuff that's like best for him, and it's going to get him reelected. But also I think he's, like I was saying before, he's done some good stuff, and he wants to talk, he likes talking about the 9/11 conspiracies, which I'm into that. Like, let's talk, like, if I wish he would have released more stuff. I wish he would have released all the UFO stuff like he said he was, the JFK stuff, all the stuff with the inside outside job of 9/11, which obviously happened. I don't even know how people think that's a conspiracy at this point.
Well, some people still are denying it. It's crazy. And even somebody that I know personally who is all about the truth and loves to talk conspiracies, but he also was a paramedic firefighter on the scene. So he has emotion tied in with it, right? So the shit that happened was very real. Like there was people that actually died. There was definitely rebel towers fell. Like you can't deny that, but let's question the motives behind it and who really did it. Like, let's have an open discussion about that. Don't just shut it out because you have an emotional attachment to it, is the way that I feel. Is like if somebody killed your family member and you were told some bullshit story and somebody was like, actually, this is what I think happened. Would you tell them to fuck off, or would you be like, yo, let's get to the bottom of this?
Yeah, it's there's so much to it, because like when everyone that gets into the conspiracy, they see Tower 7 and they're just like, whoa, that's obviously a controlled demolition. And then you start talking about the Pentagon, which why isn't there there's no video? They only have that one video that had 1 frame per second. It looks like a missile. And then you have the one in Pennsylvania where we shot it down, obviously. I mean, Donald Rumsfeld said it himself. And then there's the one that no one ever talks about, is Tower 6. Tower 6, it looks like there was a bomb dropped on it. It looks like it looks like the Oklahoma City bombing. There's no video of it. There's only images of it, and it looks fucking crazy. Like, look into Tower 6. No one ever talks about Tower 6. It is very interesting.
Well, I mean, September 11th is coming up, another anniversary. So
Mhm.
I was thinking about doing a live show with a bunch of different hosts and just doing an Instagram live, like with a little like 4-person roundtable and just talking about all this shit that people
Oh
don't
yeah.
talk about. Like for an anniversary show. I'd love to have you on for that, by the way.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun. As soon as I know what my schedule is going to be like in the future, I'd like to talk about. We did an episode about. Are you familiar with Philip Marshall?
No. Well,
He
you know what? If you jog my memory, then I might be.
he's one of the guys that he actually worked with Barry Seal. Um, I don't know if you're too familiar with Barry Seal. He was like a guy that was involved with Iran Contra. That comes up a lot. But this guy, he was really deeply connected with the CIA. He was a pilot, and he had a lot of insider knowledge about what the CIA does. He started investigating 9/11, and he wrote a couple of books. And his third book was going to expose something really big, and he ended up killing his 2 kids and his dog, and then he killed himself.
Holy shit, dude. He
Yeah.
lived down the fucking street from me. This was in Forest Meadows, California. And literally, this was 3 doors down and across the street from where I fucking lived. This and this, he was putting out a book. His kids were there. Yeah, they executed the kids, they executed the dog. And
Was that in California?
yeah, in like a
Oh,
week. Yeah, because I lived in a gated community, is like on a golf course and shit. And it was lit. I could fucking throw a baseball and hit his house from where my house was.
Holy
And
shit.
yeah, and so a lot of people were like, "What the fuck," like, and cops came to our house and were like, "We're gonna be running some tests," and this was after the fact. And they went into his house and they were firing shots in the house because nobody heard any gunshots in the neighborhood. We didn't hear a fucking thing.
Yeah.
And they came to the house and knocked on the door, said they were going to be doing tests and shit, and they fired off gunshots in the house. And then they came back and asked all the neighbors, and I'm like, yeah, I fucking heard that shit. And that, dude, that's crazy that you brought that up. And I brought this up in prior episodes, but for some reason that always escapes my fucking brain. I could here, just to prove to you guys I'm not lying right here. Hey Siri, call my Miss Lil Lulu.
Calling my Miss Little Lulu Moggy. Work.
I'm calling my daughter right now.
Okay.
Dang, I hope she answers. She's a senior, so her friends are way more important than when dad calls now. Fuck. All right, I'm gonna give it one more ring. Damn it. Anyways, yeah, dude, she totally remembers that because one of the kids was in her grade too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's crazy because the Philip Marshall thing, they cleaned up the house before the investigation concluded. They had a cleanup crew in there hours before they finished. Like that's not normal.
Yeah,
Like, you're not supposed to clean up until you have all the ballistic guys in there. You have all like the investigators. They're already ready to clean that shit up before like the locals came in.
none of it. Yeah, the locals were like shocked that there was even a conspiracy rolling around it. If you look in, you guys, if you want to go back and look at archives in the Calaveras Enterprise, there's like writings about it and how it was like this big conspiracy cover up because the guy was writing a book about 9/11. So
his book, another crazy thing is the book that he released. You look it up on Amazon, it's like $100. And people that have read the book that have the original, they say when you buy it on Amazon, there's like missing parts to it. Like they edited it after like it came out, which was, it's kind of weird. Like you never think they would ever do that, but they took the book and they changed it post-mortem.
sorry. Yeah, dude, that's crazy that you brought that up, and I it's fucked that I always forget about that. Um, so I'm gonna steal a fucking thing from Ryan Dean here, and I wanted to ask you because he went around the horn and he was like, one to 10, what do you believe? And he said flat Earth. And what was your answer? Do you remember?
I said I wasn't. I don't believe it. I think it was like a 3. Like I think if I looked into it more, I'd probably believe it more because I'm more in the hollow Earth theory guy.
They actually kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. That's why I'm kind of like maybe. And
So,
and
oh,
like the more I you look into the moon. Do we ever land there? Do we ever get past the
Van
Van
Allen.
Allen belt? Do we ever get past that? Do we have fucking weapons in space? Is there a space secret space program? Like, yeah, there's all that. So like it's a bunch of conflicting ideas that I have. I was like, because I believe there's I think we have a secret space program, but sometimes I believe do we go to space? Like, so that's like something I'm working on right now.
Awesome. Well, I know you don't really have guests on your show, but I highly suggest bringing on David Weiss, aka Flat Earth Dave,
Oh
and
yeah,
you won't walk away from that the same.
we're planning on having guests on very soon. Because at first I just want to have people in the studio, but I know all of us are like on different parts of the country, so I definitely want to start having guests on very soon. And yeah,
That's awesome. So please, dude, you came, you crushed. And I hope that everybody has more questions than answers. Um, tell us a little bit about your show. You talked about it a little bit, like who is your co-hosts? And wait, fuck that. Before I have you plug your shit, I have a question for you. How did you get into podcasting?
well, so whenever I was working at this podcast studio, there like I do video editing, or I did do video editing for them. I did a lot of graphic design, and they're just like, hey, if you ever want to do if you ever want to do a podcast, you can just use our cameras, and you can use our recorders, you can use like our mics, whatever. And I was into like podcasts before that. Like I used to work before I changed careers, I operated a food truck. So I listened to podcasts all day. So that's how I get all my information. Just 12 hours of podcast a day. And then I was like, yeah, um, I'm into sports, and I'm into conspiracies. So I'm gonna get my friends. We're gonna do like how you used to do in the good old days, be in the car, getting drunk, getting high, talking about the fucking end of the world, aliens, fucking who runs the world, all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that interests me. So yeah.
That's awesome. Hang on one second. Kalea.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm doing a podcast right now. Do you remember when we lived in Forest Meadows and down the street, that guy, he killed his, huh?
Oh, yeah. I think about that all the time.
What, do you remember what happened with that?
The guy, his wife went on vacation, and he like killed his kids and the dog, and then he killed himself, right?
Yeah, that was like 2 doors down and across the street.
Yeah, but you didn't tell me too much because I was like little. I had to look into it when I got older.
Did you look
Holy
into it?
shit.
Did you look into it and find out that he was writing a book about 9/11?
No.
Yeah, you're on my podcast right now, and we were just talking about that.
Hey.
And and my guest brought that up, and I was like, holy shit, dude, that was on my street. That happened like
I'm looking at it right now. That's totally there.
Oh, that's crazy.
yeah, it's a big conspiracy thing that actually never gets talked about. But
And he was our neighbor.
yep.
It's an American hero too.
He says he was an American hero too, but he kept to himself. Like even the kids, they really kept to themselves. We didn't know anything about what was going on over there.
Yeah, the crazy thing is the kids were the boy was going to graduate, and the girl wasn't that she was like 14.
Hang on. It's going good, baby girl. I'm gonna call you when I'm finished with it, okay?
Okay, bye.
All right, I love you. All
I love you too.
right, bye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the crazy thing is so like the people were like, oh, the reason he killed his kids because he was getting divorced and he was gonna lose custody. But like the thing is, I think the boy that was killed was like 17 or 18. He was about to go to college. So
Yeah,
that wouldn't make any sense. Like he was leaving anyway.
right. Yeah, and why kill the dog?
Right. There was no reason. And then no one heard the gunshots, like you were saying. And the coroner that said that found that, like the report that came out was saying that the two kids they found, or the boy and the girl, they were sleeping when they were killed. So like they look like they're cuddled up on the couch. They were right next to each other, and it was like they didn't know they got killed. So like one of the questions that I had was, wouldn't someone wake up because your eyes would pop open when you hear that loud gunshot?
Right.
Unless you had a silencer. But why would you have a silencer if you're going to kill yourself anyway?
Actually, have you ever shot a gun with a silencer? It's still really fucking
yeah,
loud.
it's still loud. Yeah.
It's not like the movies where it's like,
yeah,
it's not. It's still, there's still percussion to it.
Yeah, we actually discussed that on the episode. That's we did that 2 episodes ago. So if like any of your listeners are interested in the story, it's super interesting.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that I wasn't listening to you because she was texting me like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Just fucking call me." So when you were like talking about your podcast, and that's fucking dope though that you were actually already in a studio, so it was kind of like super easy for you. And I also want to say what's up because I'm also a fellow graphic designer and video.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's hard finding work right now. That's for sure. But I
yeah.
But,
The damn fucking apps are taking our jobs, man. They're taking our jobs.
But yeah, it's podcasting. It's fun. I like the process. I like to build the show. So like throughout the week, I build the graphics for the show. I write the episodes. I cut the videos that I put up on social media. So like I just tell the other guys, because they're all super busy with their lives. I was like, guys, just show up. I'll send you guys what I wrote, and then just kind of like look them over if you want to. If not, just come in cold. Like I'll do all the heavy lifting. You guys just come in and be funny, because that's their jobs. They're the funny guys. I'm the guy that kind of like
you reel him back in. I notice you got to reel him back in a lot.
It's tough, especially
when you guys are drinking, you know.
Yeah, like our early episodes, it before, because it's all process. You got to learn how to be a host, and like kind of like you got to shut people down sometimes, even though like if you know something's not going somewhere, you're like, all right, like I don't want to talk about your fucking movie. I don't want to talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger right now. Like let's get back into the show.
Screw your freedom.
Yeah. One of the guys, Joel, he's like super into Arnold. So like he gets always talking. He's like, he went on this whole tangent about Conan. I was like, stop. We're not talking about Conan right now.
No, I love your show, man. And anybody listening, go check out the Con Men podcast. It's available, like you said, on every podcasting platform, and surprisingly still YouTube, huh?
Yeah. They've given us 1 strike so far. I don't know if they took it off because I peeled it, but I don't give a fuck. I'm not trying to make. You'll never make money on YouTube. You just won't, unless you're doing makeup tutorials. It's or if you never cuss, it's weird. But yeah, we're on YouTube. Just search us, Con Men Podcast, Instagram, con_men_podcast on Instagram, and we're on Twitter. It's a much smaller account, just at Con Men Podcast 1. So yeah, that's where I'm at, and we have a Patreon. My Instagram, I have the link tree, so like you can find all that stuff over there.
Awesome, brother. Well, I'm super excited that you agreed to come on, and you definitely did not disappoint. It was cool sitting here getting to know you.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm glad you had me on here. I love doing this kind of stuff, and I like talking about it. It's hard to talk to regular people about this kind of stuff because they look at you like you're crazy, but you're like, how could you not be into this? It's like a movie, but it's fucking real.
Yes.
It's a horror movie, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, a lot of my normie friends, they're like, why do you do this podcast? Like, it's so dark, all the stuff that you talk about. Well, obviously listen to it or watch it because I'm having a fucking blast when I'm doing it, right? And it gives me an outlet to be able to talk to this shit, because most of the people in my daily lives, I can't have these conversations with them. They're just going to roll their eyes at me, and I'm just like, okay, I know you don't want to hear about this. Okay, yes, there's lizard people, you fucker, but let's not talk about it.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing is one of the other hosts, Coop. He has a podcast called Iconoblast. They do a history channel. They have a history podcast, but he's really smart guy. He's really big into history. But I'll tell him something like on the Epstein episode, I was talking about Prism and what's it called, the thing with Snowden. How Maxwell was involved with that with the Promise software, and he like looked at me. He's like, "No shit, that's the same thing." Like it like blew his mind. He's like, "No fucking way, it's a whoa," and like sometimes I'll get him with it.
That's awesome.
He loves history. He's not really a conspiracy theorist, but he likes talking about it, and like he's kind of like a guy that'll push back on a lot of things I say. So like my whole thing is like, I got to write this episode to make him believe. That's the guy I want to make believe. And then whenever I do get that kind of reaction out of him, you're like, oh, like, yeah, this is a good one.
Hell yeah, dude. And it's good that you have that on there, because it's always good to have like a show that I like to listen to. They have somebody on there, they call him the resident normie.
Yeah.
And he's always like, no, they would never do that, or that can't be, and shit like that. But if you bring receipts, man, that's all.
Yeah.
You bring receipts, then people can't really deny what, everybody wants to be quick to say,
you do not know what you are talking about.
But we do. We really do.
That is some good multitasking that you're doing over there. People don't realize that's tough to do. Like, and usually you have a producer for that. You're doing this as you're going.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man.
What? We just become best friends. Yep.
Yep.
You are more than welcome to come on the podcast anytime, man. If you have a subject that you're just dying to get on here and talk about, I can't promise you that we're going to stick to the subject, because, man, I'm an off the hip kind of guy and I love to get off topic, but I think that's some of the best fucking episodes. So, Sean, it's been fucking awesome. Everybody, if you are not already following him on Instagram, it is the Conmen Podcast. Or is it podcast or just Conmen?
It's Conmen Podcast. It is. The words are separated with underscores. So yeah. Con_men_ podcast. Conmen plural, not conman. Conmen.
Conmen. Yes. And I'm definitely gonna link you when this episode comes out, and so people will be able to see the flyer, go follow you and whatnot. So man, that wraps up another episode of White Rabbit. You guys know where to find me because you're fucking listening to me, so I'm not going to plug my shit. You already know. Everybody, love you guys. Keep tuning in and keep digging down those rabbit holes.
Thank you.
I'm gonna need everybody here to lower their expectations. It's a Tuesday. We're gonna roll in. How old are you guys? Let me ask you a question. How is Jeffrey Epstein's Island? How old are you? 18. You're aged out. Yeah. They look at you on that island like, what this old bitch doing over here? Get her ass out of here. You got your period? Fuck out of here. Guys. Can I tell you guys a story? Okay, last night, I'm doing a show here, okay? And I was talking about the Epstein thing. And two couple, just get up and they fucking leave. Just trying to come up with an Epstein joke, right? Because how do you justify what he's doing? It's fucking horrible, right? So I'm just talking about it last night on stage. I'm just bringing it up. I know it's bad, okay? But I'm just throwing ideas out there. Just throwing them out. Just jokes. You know, I'm like, the reason why he had the young girls on the island is because in case they tried to swim away, he would just play Baby Shark. Daddy. Just kidding, they don't have dads. Look, that's why they were on the island, guys. I'm just searching for jokes here. I know it's fucked up, sir, okay? You look like you've been. You look like the contractor that built that island. Listen, if you want a good dungeon, what you gotta do, listen, let me tell you something. You want a dungeon? I'll teach you how to make a dungeon. Let's see. Oak, you get a good oak. You go 20 feet under the ground. Plaster it all up. Okay? The girl screams can't get through the plaster. Look, I'm just throwing the idea. It doesn't matter. The couple gets up and they fucking run out. They run the fuck out. And I stopped. Instead of making fun of anything, I was like, listen, they did the exact right thing. They did the exact right thing. They felt uncomfortable. They felt, wildly miserable. And they were in an awful situation. And then they just got up and left. Right? Now, the tricky thing about being on an island. You're gonna be here for a while. So he is a piece of shit.